Welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast and another episode of Riffs. Today I'm riffing with my good friend, OWAA member, podcaster, and writer, Emanuel Rose. This is the first of a multi-part series on planning and preparing for your outdoor adventures. Today we're talking about road trips, specifically planning the perfect road trip for camping and fishing. We'll cover how to map out the best route, pack for every scenario, and ensure that you have all the right gear so you set up for anything the road and river throw your way. Let's hit the road and get ready for adventure, 1 mile and one cast at a time. Hey, Emanuel, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Rick. Yeah, we got to get out in the field together at some point here.
Yeah, exactly. Get some fishing in. Yeah, I don't hunt much anymore, but I got a shotgun. I could take a shot at some birds.
All right, or at least go hiking with it.
I go walking with my fishing rod quite a bit. So what we're going to do, we were just spitballing, I forget when we were talking a few weeks ago about all the event activities we go on and adventures we go on, and got to thinking that maybe it would be interesting to record some stuff about helping people plan for adventures. There's 4 steps to getting set. One is obviously planning the perfect road trip for a fishing or hunting adventure or just camping. The second would be to maximize your experience. There's some tips on that. And then explore the scenic and underrated fishing spots. That's always a special. People like to know about the fishing spots that are underrated. We each have a few, I'll bet. We may not want to talk about those, but something else, of course. Yeah. And then finally, just building memories and long-term adventures. We're going to wing it here. I have a concept in my show called Riffs, where we just get on and just riff about stuff. So we'll probably take that approach, see how it goes. There's kind of 5 topics under each of those 4 headings, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It could be interesting. It could be not interesting at all. But I'm sure it'll be interesting. I'm sure we both have a lot of tips. So the first one is planning the perfect road trip for a camping and fishing adventure, or any adventure, really. I think there's some things that Emanuel goes through and some things that I go through. Top of the list is choosing the destination. Obviously, you want to select the ideal camping and fishing spot, from local rivers to remote national parks. I'm sure you have your favorite spots and your spots close by that you don't really have to plan for. But if you're going to somewhere new, what's your process?
Yeah, I think it depends if I'm going to go by myself or I'm going with a group. That's the first thing, right?
Yeah.
If I'm solely dependent on myself, then I tend to get pretty deep in. I'll buy a guidebook that'll cover that area, so I have an actual physical copy. A lot of times I'll also get like the atlas for that state. So I've got the road atlas and then I use Onyx. I'll then use Onyx and Google Maps and figure out some destination around that. And like, for instance, I think it's called the Jawbridge out here in Nevada. I've done all that for that wilderness area that I haven't been to yet. So I have all these places along with kind of the main town where I'm going to get supplies as everything progresses. And
is it a grocery store, or is it, I got to buy groceries at a liquor store? What am I doing?
it'll be just a grocery store of gas in that little spot in Troy, Oregon. It's you got like right there on the Grand Ron in Winona River. It's just a little bit of grocery store and no gas, unfortunately.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
So you got to plan ahead for those kind of destinations.
Yeah, a lot of canned goods. Yeah, I do the same. For big trips, I haven't done too many big solo trips, but sometimes what I'll do is if I'm going somewhere to do something else, like I'm driving to a trade show or driving to like I drove across to the Outdoor Writers Association conference in Wyoming. Yeah. And so I took some time and look at some planning, some spots to fish. But I'm like you, I get out the map, I buy a local map, I'll buy a local guidebook just so in case I get there and go, okay, now what am I going to do? I have some resources to go do that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't depend 100% obviously on the digital stuff because we end up in spots where there's no cell service and no internet. So you got to have a combination. And I ended up in that situation this fall where, I'm driving between Oregon and Missoula and right there on the Clearwater and Loxa and all that. And a lot of that has got cell service. And then the spot where I needed it, there wasn't any. And so I had to break out the paper maps and the books. So it's good.
A lot of times too, you'll be driving down the road and you got cell service, but then you're probably like me, you find a dirt road to turn down and go camp at. And when you get down that dirt road, you got no service. Or you get down the dirt road to the campground and there's no service.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to have redundant systems, which is a big theme in all the things that I do around these trips is redundant systems.
Yeah, but I agree 100%. Where did you learn that?
I learned from my dad, who was an outdoorsman, but also from making the mistake enough times.
Yeah. I learned it from guiding. When I was guiding on the Kern River and other places, you always had two or three of everything because you never know when you're going to break something, lose something. Yeah,
You're guaranteed if you only have one, it's gonna disappear. It'll
that's right.
fall in a hole or it'll break instantly.
Yep, that's right. So, what are some of those gear and tools and equipment you should never leave behind for a successful trip?
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
It's a long list.
it is a long list. I think the first thing is we want to have we want to maintain some amount of comfort, some amount of clothing, some amount of culinary, and some amount of cleanliness. And so the four C's are important. The biggest thing is that you got to have a good sleeping nest.
Mm,
And in my early days, that was just a blue tarp and a sleeping bag, and I just throw it on the ground. And
right. Wow,
now,
luxury. You had a tarp.
yeah, exactly. Now with the advent of the 4-inch pad,
Oh man. Yeah. Or the insulated walled tent. That's the new
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. So that's the first thing is just understanding the weather patterns and temperatures. And for instance, in September when I was on in Southern Oregon steelhead fishing, I actually had lost my sleeping bag and pad. It got washed away in the river.
Oh,
So I borrowed a blanket and I slept outside in my tent. I was just no sleeping bag. But
yeah.
the temps were 60s at night, so you
Yeah,
can get
not
away
bad.
with that.
Yeah.
That's a mistake I wouldn't want to make again this time of the year because it's too cold for that.
It's pretty cold. Yeah. I
But
can't remember what we were doing, but I was on a trip once with a buddy. I used to have a buddy of mine who we would pack up and go and just load the cars and meet somewhere and do our thing. And I
yeah,
forgot, I must have forgot my sleeping bag or something. And he only had one. So I was in my vehicle with a towel, nothing. And
right.
it was cold. So yeah,
The
yeah,
secret when you do end up without a sleeping bag is to put on every piece of clothing now.
that's right.
Like you can't, you got to just figure, I'm gonna clothing and then wrap up in what like you have a towel. That's awesome.
Whatever you have. Yeah.
And you can also you could build a lean-to and have a fire also if you really needed to, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you think you should never, do you have, what kind of a cook setup do you have?
Yeah, again, it just depends on duration. I've got a really nice Camp Chef dual burner stove. I also have got single burner backpacking stoves. So it depends on what activity and how long it'll be dug in for. And then there's just the basics, which is you want cord, you want knives, you want fire starting, and you need some kind of a cooler or dry goods
Mhm.
bin. And
And you got to have a crapper of some sort. What's a lot of these places, most of the time, if you're in a campground, they have a pit toilet or something. But sometimes here in the Eastern Sierra, we can go off grid many times. And so you want to be prepared to maintain a clean site and all that stuff. What do you use for that? Or do you camp much off grid?
yeah, that kind of Luggable Loo style where you get
Hmm.
a bag that's self-contained and can just go in a regular waste when you get back into the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I like to be, if I can, I like to be far enough away I can just cat hole it and not have to worry
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
what, yeah, we do.
Right.
Yeah. Cattle. I've done when I was guiding on the river, we had a bucket with a toilet seat and all that
Yeah.
stuff and a bag in it, which was luxury. But yeah, just dig a hole.
Yeah.
Make sure you go deep enough.
Yeah. And manage the toilet paper. That's the other thing. I think
Yeah.
you really should be burning the toilet paper personally because most people don't take good care of that part of the process.
Yeah, if I agree. I have a spot up here north of here called, we dubbed it Campsite A. Years ago when we first started going there was nobody there. Now there's people there all the time.
Yeah.
And as I leave town going north to Reno or wherever I'm going to fly out, I always pull in there and have a coffee or on the way back, have a beer. And lately, though, there's just been more and more toilet paper and trash and stuff in the fire. Just throw it right in the fire pit. Don't burn it. Just, come on, folks. Let's burn this
Yeah.
stuff.
Listen, yeah.
Let's think about the next person coming behind us. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Any other equipment that you take for camping?
Let's see. It's weather dependent. Sometimes if it's wintertime camping, I will do insulate my tent with wool blankets on the
Hmm.
outside. I do have a heater, one of those buddy heaters.
I got to get one of those. Yeah, those are handy.
Yeah. And I like that the smaller propane tanks, the little baby ones.
Yeah,
They're
yep.
the 5 pound, I think is what they're
You can't
called.
find those anymore. At least down here you can't.
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon, and
Oh, okay.
that's the most consistent way. And then a distribution tree, right? So you've got
Yep.
that's your tank. You got the ability to do lantern, stove, grill. If it's someplace I'm going to be for a week or 10 days, then I'll have the full kitchen set up. So I have all the options that way.
Yeah.
Multiple
That's
knives,
handy to
knife
do
sharpener.
dishwash too when you have
Yeah,
the full
yeah,
stove setup. Yeah.
yeah. The dish definitely for dishes and then some kind of a washing, like you're saying, some kind. I have a little foldable sink, basically. Yeah, also.
Do you do the three stage washing? The first is just water to rinse all the big chunks off, then that's the soap, get all that off, and then you do another rinse and the last one is a bleach wash.
If we're
Glass of
if
bleach
we're
in
on the if we're on the a river trip,
it?
then we'll manage it a little more directly. But
Hmm.
a lot of times we're not water shy. we have
Yeah, yeah,
we have a lot of containers. So
yeah. A lot of times too, I'm not really, if it's just for a couple of nights, I'm not really cooking, so to speak. I'm just warming stuff up, or just even eating a package of. You go to Vaughn's and buy one of those packages of fried chicken and eat on that
right,
for all
yeah,
weekend.
keep it easy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, keep it simple. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, ricksaez.com, where you'll find show notes and links to everything we talked about and more. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, give us a rating on Apple Podcast or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week, and thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast.